everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Andrea, and in today's video I would like to review for you two books, both written by Katie Lumsden. Now, Katie Lumsden is a long-time booktuber. In fact, she just reached her 10-year threshold. And to celebrate this, she also made kind of a challenge, and the reading challenge is to read one classic and one historical fiction. And there are a few kind of celebratory moments for her. Now, I decided to just read her two books instead of the classic pairing. And I do think that this is a good time to drop this review because I have been chipping away at these, and I was wondering, what point is it okay to talk about it? And there is a bias, unfortunately. I know that I usually say separate the art from the artist. Now, in situations like these, most people are hesitant to trust the review rather than the art itself, because the review is a little bit biased when the author is such a friendly person and an incredible presence in the booktube sphere. But one thing to keep in mind is that both of these books were traditionally published by real publishers, and I think that's very important to keep in mind. It is something that's very difficult to do. And in terms of my review, is to keep in mind that I did not receive these for free. I purchased them myself. In fact, this one has not been published in North America, so I had to order it from the UK. And just, full-on disclaimer, no one sent me these. Katie Lumsden did not ask me to review these. So I just want to kind of get that out of the way. But, there is a little bias here because I do greatly admire the author. And this is not the first time when this has happened. For example, I've watched many YouTube interviews and videos with David Foster Wallace, with Philip Pullman, where I really enjoyed their talking voice and their debate and opinion voice, and then I was drawn to purchase their books as a result of liking their personality. So I think it kind of works a little bit both ways, right? So keeping that in mind, if I were to describe to you the vibes of these books, because I'm all about vibes lately, especially with mood reading and mood fiction, is that this is your Victober book and this is your Jane Austen July book, which makes sense because Katie Lumsden started Victober on BookTube and Jane Austen July. I mean, if you know me, you'll know that I'm a bit more of the dark gothic kind of mood. Start with this one because this is the one that I read first. So this is a book about a governess who arrives at Hartwood Hall. And she herself is a little bit desperate for a job. She can't really say no. Her husband was the preacher in town and very connected to the church, and he had just passed away, and she felt like it was too soon to move on and get a job. So she herself was a bit desperate. But then Hartwood Hall has a lot of rumors around it where people say, stay away, don't go there, it's very dark and creepy, something's up there. And as she arrives, she meets the lady of the house and the little child. And we get a lot of hints that the little child is also kind of weird. There's a lot happening there. Multiple moments we are told that this kid is both wise beyond his years, but also somehow underdeveloped. Now, as we progress, we find that almost every single person at Hartwood Hall has a secret. The gardener has a secret. The lady of the house, the mother, has a secret and a secret side hustle. The kid has a secret. The mom and the kid have a secret. The governess herself has a secret. There are secrets everywhere. Because of that, it's also presented to you as a kind of gothic tone and a gothic atmosphere, but it's also a mystery. And it's one of those mysteries that kind of unfolds like a flower, where the more you find out, the more questions you have. So then you peel one and then the next one shows up and then you have more questions. So it's actually very difficult to talk about it because I feel like by the time you get even halfway through the book, there are so many little things that have already been told to you that were secrets to begin with, that were intriguing and pulling at you to keep reading, right? Because you wondered what happened there, who is that, why is she missing, why is she going over there? So it is presented to you as a kind of mystery. I know a lot of people have said that this is, a love letter to the Brontes. And I think, to some extent, yes, especially since the main character is a governess. And the governess herself is very interesting because you can see that she's struggling a lot with her identity. She's wondering, who was I before I married Richard? Like, who was that person? And then she also struggles with her faith, especially since her husband was involved with religion, and now going to church brings back some memories of her husband. So there's a lot of kind of layers to her character as well. And then she's also very eager to be willing to fall in love again because, I don't know, there's something kind of missing in her life in a way. So there's a lot there that kind of reminds me a little bit of Jane Eyre, and it does remind me a little bit of The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. But to me, because the language is somewhat newer and it is a gothic scene in a mysterious house, to me this reads a lot more like a Daphne du Maurier novel, specifically Rebecca, but it's definitely got that historical fiction gothic tone. Now, when it comes to this book, in here, it's a totally different voice. And had I not known that the author was, the mother of Victober and Jane Austen July, I wouldn't know that this is the same author. The voice in this book is very different. It's a lot more upbeat and fun and light. It's all about spilling the tea. It's about town gossip. It's about going to parties. I know that this might not be a description everyone loves because this is a controversial topic on BookTube, but I do think that people who love Bridgerton might really enjoy this novel. And I'm not saying this novel is like Bridgerton, because it's not. It's definitely a lot more historically correct, and I know that for a fact. And it's not a Regency novel. It's set in 1841. But it's got that kind of vibe where you have multiple balls and parties and multiple families and layers of stories, where you have your main story with the young man marrying a widower, and then there's gossip in town about what this means and what does Mrs. Montgomery Hurst bring to the table, and there are multiple stories. In both of these, you do kind of have a main female character who is aspiring to be a writer or is a writer. And of course, there's a lot of humor to this one. There's a lot of kind of quirky voices. It's very Jane Austen meets Oscar Wilde, especially like a good Oscar Wilde play, where you have a lot of witty dialogue and a lot of sauciness, I would say, for sure. I would watch a TV show based on this book so much, and maybe it doesn't have to be Shondaland, but I do think that this would make an extraordinary mini-series. As I've mentioned, because Katie is a booktuber, she did talk a lot in videos about the making of these, what books inspired it, whether they were classics or actual Victorian novels, but then she also speaks about non-fiction books that she used to inform herself of this. And recently at the library where I work, I received this big donation of all of these Charles Dickens novels, and when I looked at them all together, I thought about Katie Lumsden, because during the month of October, she reviews a lot of Charles Dickens. She knows those novels inside out. Like, she's read all of them at least twice. She's hosted read-alongs for multiple of these books. And on top of it all, I've seen her in the past absolutely tear apart a Jane Austen biography where she knew more facts about Jane Austen than the biographer herself. And this is very impressive. Like, her knowledge of the Regency and Victorian period is so detailed and it's abundant. I honestly thought she was a professor at Oxford of Victorian literature when I first came across her channel. She knows her historical facts, and you can see that in these books for sure. I do suspect, this is my prediction, okay? I predict that her next novel will be also Victorian. It will be a bit more like this, but it will have a heavy Dickensian influence. That is my prediction. I think that one's gonna be her sad novel, her big Victorian, like, inspired by Charles Dickens novel. I think that's what's gonna happen next. That's just my fun little prediction. Anyway, that's these two novels. If you read them, please let me know if you enjoyed them. What did you think of them? They are outside of my comfort zone. Generally, I read historical fiction set in the medieval period, but I was genuinely interested in picking these up. So thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in a future video very soon. Bye!